Okay, everybody, let's call this meeting of the. Okay, Paul Harding's going to join in a minute as well. Um, just thank him. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. First order of business is to approve meeting minutes from our meeting of February 25th. If I could get a motion for that. Rob moves. Dennis seconds. All in favor. Great. Um, we have a number of folks from town government with us today, but we don't have any members of the general public, I don't believe, so we can skip over public comment. Um, Nothing really specific for the chair's report. We have a lot to cover in terms of bringing people up to date on some things. Um, and I'm glad we're joined by John Zagrodsky and Monica McNally and Robin Nelson, um, as well as the folks that normally join us. So welcome you guys to our meeting. What I'll do now is either Matt or Scott, if you could just give the group a quick update um, on where things stand. We had an OAC meeting earlier today. It sounds like a big milestone coming up is the first and second week of April as we head to the April break in terms of finishing the current phase of construction and moving into the next phases of construction. So if you could give folks a kind of a high level update on that, it would be great.
Yeah, sure. Um, Good evening, everybody. All three schools are running on target to meet the dates that we've all been talking about for a while, which is, finishing up basically at the beginning of April, get it cleaned up and punched out, and then move in to be ready for April break. Everything is, all three schools are really kind of at the same place in phase three. Flooring is in, walls are primed, ceiling grid is in, ceiling pads have started, lights are going in. Um, all three are basically in that um, same spot at each school. So we're feeling really good about bringing this thing to the finish line at all three schools. So we really don't see anything aside from one room at Royal that's lagging a little behind due to a change with the penthouse fire sprinkler antifreeze loop that had to be moved via a change order. So that's the only part that's really a little bit behind, and but I don't see that being any issues as far as finishing up. Then also at Royal, we have the Music Wing addition that is going up. That is moving along well. It's actually kind of moving simultaneously with the phase three work as ceiling grid is in, lights are going in, ceiling diffusers, um, flooring is going in. Outside work is wrapping up on the building. Really, the last pieces of that puzzle are the metal panels going on the sloped roofs, which are moving along. And then we'll be able to finish the roof detail there once those panels are on. So the outside's in really good shape as we quickly move into spring with the weather rapidly changing. Looks like we're going to roll right into some exterior work there at on the outside of the music addition, starting the concrete work outside and then starting to redo the landscape around that building and then out into the field, hopefully. So it's kind of a high level view of all three schools. One note too for Henley, as all the schools, we've all worked on the drainage over the past 2 years. Um, all that drainage retention systems are in place at all three schools. Henley's been the one with the most problem with the rain that we had the other night. Uh, it appears that we haven't had any issues with flooding or overflow or anything going into the neighbors' yards. So that is something obviously we'll keep an eye on as spring moves on and heavier rains move in over through the course of the spring. But so far it seems like things are working as designed.
That's great news. That's really good news. Yeah, one
Yeah.
highlight we that Matt mentioned at the OAC today was that in the pretty near term, the construction trailers at Hindley and Holmes are going to be removed. So that'll be kind of a neat sign of progress outside of the schools. Royals lagging a little bit further behind on that, but not too far. More like May, but that'll be a nice sign to show that with the trailers moving out, the site cleanup is going to be starting in earnest. It will look less like construction sites at those two schools. Any questions for Scott or Matt in terms of timeline or phasing or what is anticipated? Maybe you guys could just, Scott, quickly, what is anticipated to be done during the April break?
Um, so during April break, we've actually been working, behind the scenes, obviously, to get everything in gear for April break for that start of that last phase at all three schools. Each one is a little bit different than the other. I know over at Hindley, I don't know if Matt touched on this in the OEC. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that today, but we talked about the Ross letting us take that library early in February in order for preparations for the demolition of that building, which was a very big help to us. We were able to get the abatement done over February break on the inside of the building. So that means come April, that building is ready to be torn down as soon as the sprinkler inside is disconnected. So that was a big help for us there. That's the big work happening at Henley is going to be removing that library and then starting the work on the bus loop, as well as wrapping up the exterior finishes with reinstalling the field in the back and getting grass planted and such down the side of the building. And then, there's still some phase four work inside the building, but to a smaller extent with some ceiling work and, some more of the HVAC work to do. And then over at Homes, there's also a lot happening there with the GLC work. And again, we're taking that in April. John has worked well with Paula on getting that situated for the move out of the librarian for April break so we can start the demolition work inside of there and also taking over the courtyard area in the back to start the addition off the back of the library as well and to start the courtyard work. So all that coordination has been happening behind the scenes. And then um, the other big part of this summer phase that will hopefully be starting in April, and it feels like the weather is working in our favor for shutting boilers down in April. Um, but homes, boilers will be removed. The steam boilers will be removed, and we'll be installing new hot water boilers there. And then over at Royal, the hot water conversion of the steam boilers will take place starting in April as well with the demolition of that. So those are other two big components of going into this last phase of these projects. Um, and then of course there's the added work that some will start hopefully in April and most will start probably when school is out. And that added work was some of our what we're calling wish list items with some new flooring, some tile on walls and areas that weren't receiving it. Um, One of the bigger things is doing the facade work over at Royal. And that's probably the biggest one of all. The rest of them are all really cosmetic, smaller items that I think are going to have a large impact, though, on the overall look of the projects when we're complete, which we're pretty happy about.
Yeah, and we can touch on the Royal entrance a little bit later.
Yep.
Any questions then for Scott and Matt on work progress?
And just one for me, Chris. So,
Sure.
I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, Scott, but so obviously we're in the home stretch and we have some demolition and some digging up of a bus loop and Holmes Library of bumping that out. But, as much as we can progress, you feel fairly confident that we're not going to dig into our contingencies on these things and we're, without knowing, but knowing where we are, you're confident in where we are with the projects.
Yeah, I don't foresee anything really unforeseen coming up that would be a large dollar value. I suspect maybe through the phase 4 work, like at homes, we still have some classrooms to dig into. We're not doing, we're not moving walls or anything there, so I don't suspect we'd find anything too big that would be, in our way down in that area. Um, Same really goes for Royal. If anything, there, I don't think there's any roof drains. That was one of the problems we ran into. We're demoing walls and finding roof drains in there that, weren't shown, and had to be moved. But again, that's small
Okay,
items. We haven't really run into any big ticket items in the renovation work in the buildings. And even
okay,
outside over at Hinley, I mean, we've done, our work to find if there's anything, in our ways there to get ahead of it. And I don't feel like we're going to find anything that we're not, that's
okay.
unknown there.
And again, I'm not trying to pin you down to anything. Just trying to just make sure we're dotting every I as much as we can before we go forward. So
Hey, listen,
appreciate.
anything can happen, but honestly, I think we all feel pretty comfortable where we are and with what we're up against.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Yep. Hopefully that
Um,
just didn't curse us, Dennis.
um,
Exactly.
yeah, one bit of housekeeping before we get into some other things. I'm going to be away, physically away for the month of April. I'll be available by Zoom and by phone. But for large payment items, namely particularly the pay apps that allow Scott to pay his subs and therefore to keep the subs working, which is pretty important. Um, we require three signatures, and three signatures have been Sarah, Rob Cardone, and myself, and I'm going to be away in April. So what I would like to do is just for one time for this month, not the pay apps we're going to vote on this evening, but for the pay apps that we will vote on in April, which will be the March pay apps, that the committee authorize um, merely Sarah and Rob to sign those, and those that being valid authorization for for those large ticket items, because those are generally running somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million per school per month. So if I could get a motion to authorize two signatures, Sarah Newman and Rob Cardone, to authorize payment of the March pay apps after the April HHR BC meeting. If I could get a
So
motion
move.
to approve that. Dennis
So move.
moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor.
Aye.
Great, that passed.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'll be on the April meeting. I just won't be able to get to town hall on a timely basis. So those can then get processed through Josh Kaufman's um, office to pay Scott. Um, on the wish list in the financial report, as we've seen every month, kind of go hand in hand. Josh did not get the information he needed quickly enough to be able to do his financial snapshot, but which for the benefit of the folks that are joining us this evening who haven't been regular attendees, what Josh does is a summary on a school by school basis and then on an aggregate basis showing how our payment progress is going against the general budget, right? So a total budget of roughly $34 million for Royal, 33 for Hinley, 34 for Holmes. And then on the aggregate, that's the $101 million budget that everyone's aware of. So for your benefit, as of last month, we were about 74%, 74 million aggregate obligated against the 101. That's before touching any contingencies. That's just budget usage. And about 30 million, roughly 30 million, 28 million remaining to be spent in the general budget. What I'll do is, and we'll talk about contingencies in a second, what I'll do is I've asked Josh, now that the data he needs to produce his report has been generated, have him generate that report. I'll send it around by email to everybody as soon as I get it, hopefully tomorrow, latest Friday. People can look at it, and obviously, if they have any questions, I'll send it to this whole group. Um, and if anyone has any questions, we can just talk about it by phone. But I don't expect a whole lot, a whole lot of difference. There may be some, obviously we'll have spent a little bit more money. The pay apps last month weren't huge, so it's not going to be a gigantic move. And so tying the discussion of the wish list items to the contingency items, um, again, for the benefit of the folks who weren't on the meeting last month, um, we had used about 54% of the Henley owners contingency, about 70% of the Holmes owners contingency, and about 53% of the Royal owners contingency. And I'm sorry, I said that backwards. We had remaining about 54% of the Henley owners, 70% of the Holmes owners, and 53% of the Royal owners. And so that's about, just using numbers, about 865,000 for Henley, about 1,000,001 for Holmes, and 870 for Royal. Then looking at the construction manager's contingency, we have about 705,000 left for Henley, 800 and some left for Holmes, and about 800 left for Royal. So we really haven't hit the CM's contingency. The point being in the aggregate, we've got a little over 1.5 million total contingency dollars for Henley, about 1,000,009 total contingency dollars for Holmes, and close to 1,000,008, 1,000,007 total contingency dollars for Royal. So kind of put a pin in those numbers. Before talking about the new items that were proposed to be done, what we call the wish list items, were running at about, in the aggregate, 350-ish, round numbers, 350-ish per school. Okay, against 1,000,005, 1,000,009, 1,000,007 of aggregate contingencies. So probably the single biggest dollar contingency item, and we can talk about that now. Probably the single biggest contingency item is at Royal, where what was proposed was, and again, keeping in mind about 1,000,007 of total contingency available at Royal. One of the things that was when our architects first did the renderings for Royal 2 years plus ago, one of the things they suggested was a new entrance for Royal. It was not budgeted going in initially. When we realized 8 or 9 months ago that we were doing really well against our contingencies, we reopened the discussion around doing a much nicer, updated entrance for Royal, keeping in mind that both Henley, once the old library is down, even though it won't be the quote main entrance, but it'll be a very, very nice renovated entrance. Henley will have a new entrance, and Holmes has gotten a new entrance. Royal was the only school not getting a new entrance. So we reopened the discussion around the Royal entrance. Where we stand, let's talk about that in particular. Where we stand on that was, I'm just taking a look at the numbers. Originally, we sort of circled a number around 170,000 for the new Royal entrance. Last month, we learned that pricing was coming in higher than that, 225-ish plus or minus. Scott, does that sound right?
Yep.
Pricing was coming in higher than that. So what we decided to do last month was one, work with the folks who are going to do that version of the entrance to try to get the pricing down, but knowing that we kind of had that data point at about 225. But also KG&D was going to look at, and that was for a custom built, custom fabricated new entrance. They were going to look at a prefabricated option. And then I believe our glass contractor, window contractor at Royal, has also been contacted about possibly fabricating a new entrance. We got earlier, and I sent it around to the committee members, and I think I sent it to Robin and Dennis and Kevin and Dr. Byrne. And I don't know if somebody, maybe Sarah, I don't know if you have the availability to share those renderings for the principals and for John and Monica, but we have at least what two of the potential entrances might look like, and we're waiting on the glass contractor to put their rendering together. And once we have those and we have some more specific pricing, we can decide which of those we want to move forward with. But I think in any case, it's going to be a pretty big improvement to Royal. But that's going to mean that, the total Royal wish list contingency spend is going to be more like 450 rather than 380. But I think considering that we have almost $1.5 million in total contingency for Royal, we still feel like we have plenty of room there to do that together with all the other stuff. I don't know if it's possible. If anyone can share.
Yeah, Chris, I'm so sorry. I cannot, and I'm terrible. I don't
Okay.
know if you guys have noticed I've dropped off 3 times. Scott, do you
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
ability to share them?
Scott or
Yeah.
something. I'm terrible at
All right, I'm gonna make Scott.
I'm terrible at the technology. Maybe Scott, do
No,
you have
it's
the
just
ability to fill those renderings up?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Scott. Sorry about that. A bad connection.
Hopefully Natasha's still on. She can see what her new entrance might look
She
like.
is. I
Yes,
see
I'm
she's
here.
still.
I would love to see what the new entrance might look like. Thanks, Chris.
So, Chris, before I bring anything up to, I just want to let you know that I did get some pricing in from our glass contractor, Cherry Hill Glass. We had them quote a actual stainless steel frame with glass, similar to the original rendition of KG&D. And I just got it today. I haven't drilled down into it, but I mean, right now we're at like 67,000 total, all in installed. So that number is coming back down to kind of where we thought it was going to be.
Wow.
Yep.
Any other good news you want to share today? I could use some, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth that effort to try to come up with an alternate plan.
Yeah. And where does that compare, just ballpark, to the prefab option that KG&D had talked about, the MEPS?
That was coming in at $70,000 delivered, not installed.
Okay. All right. So we're all kind of close.
Well, the difference is the installation cost, which is,
Right.
there's some money there. And that's kind of what
for
I think
sure. But
pushing it
Cherry
over.
Hill's number's installed. That's an installed number.
Correct.
Wow.
And for a stainless steel canopy as opposed to an aluminum frame.
Wow.
So it's an upgraded material as well.
That's cool. So maybe spare people the suspense and let's see if you can share the pictures.
Yeah, let me pull up the stuff that Eric had sent over earlier.
Yeah, please.
While you're doing that, do you also have kind of a master list that shows all of the committee proposed expenditures of contingency as well as the stuff that the Board of Finance did, just for a total? And then how much in dollars is remaining in total contingency? And is that enough to get you through the end of the project?
So
Yeah,
John, we can go through that, but we haven't talked about with the committee yet
Oh,
the other
okay,
options. So
yeah.
okay,
There is, yes, there is a school by school matrix of all the proposed additional items. And Matt, maybe what we can do is recirculate it, but add the paving, the gym floor, and the bollards, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then recirculate it with those items added. And then I can circulate that to the larger group, and
Sure.
that'll show you the whole range of what's being proposed and what the proposed pricing for those items is.
okay. And
Sure,
I'm
I can
sorry,
do that.
Sarah, could you reiterate your point? The committee has discussed the things that the committee wants to propose for a contingency expenditure, but not the Board of Finance proposals?
Correct. We're gonna get
correct,
to the we're gonna get to
correct. We have
those.
not
We're
had
gonna get to
discussions.
those.
That's got it.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct.
today. Got it. Okay, thank you.
There are a number of people on the committee by virtue of some communications and having been at
Yes,
OAC meetings that are aware of what those are, but I'll do a
correct,
more wholesome description.
correct.
Chris, and I also want to know, I don't know if this was brought up before, but all of the contingency remaining balances that we report on through our reports to you should already reflect all of the potential or accurate pricing that we have for all these contingency items.
Right. And I think, right, that's helpful. And maybe what I'll do is I'll ask Josh to, in his financial report, to reflect that, so he can pull those numbers out. So, because I think what he shows is just is what's available without without the impact of the wish list items, because they haven't come through as change orders yet.
Okay. I guess it just depends on where he's pulling those numbers and what part of the report he's pulling them from.
Yes.
Right, Scott? Am I understanding that correctly? Because from my understanding, based off of the reports that we produced, the numbers that Chris listed off earlier have already taken into account the numbers that we've given for the excess or the wish list items.
Oh, is that right? So you think Josh's numbers already reflect that?
I would have to confirm where he's pulling them on the
Yeah,
numbers from, but there should be multiple numbers, some that do include that 350 plus or minus number taken out already. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw another wrench into the equation.
No,
well,
no, no.
listen,
But go
to-
ahead, Scott.
we're just gonna say to the point. I mean, we can get any numbers that you guys want to look at. We can put whatever needs to be put together. We have everything.
Right, but let me speak to Josh tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then what I may do is, Matt, I may have he and you speak to make sure that what he's looking at does or does not reflect the wish list items.
Sure, I can talk with him about that.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen or no?
Not yet.
I thought it was up. There's some. I forgot you have to hit this extra button when you're doing a Zoom call. How about now?
Yep.
So this is the the rendering of what KG&D had originally proposed with the glass canopy. Was an aluminum frame. So this was the original design. This was 70,000 for this unit not installed. This was the rendering that they came up with. Chris had asked for just doing something similar to what's there. It's just the metal canopy, no glass. It only has a 4-foot projection off of the building, as opposed to the other one is about 8 feet, I believe, off the building. So this would be a cheaper option. I have not gotten pricing on this yet, but it would be considerably cheaper. This is probably be more of a painted steel canopy, similar to what is on the building now, except flat as opposed to what is there now, which this is a similar construction to the flat one I just gave you a rendering of. This is the curved one that is there already.
And so the prices that you're quoting, Scott, the 67,000, the 70,000, it's a little bit apples and oranges, right? Because you said the one that Cherry Hill gave you today
So I have
is
a very
installed.
rough rendering of it. It's going to be difficult for you guys to kind of understand this, but
Right.
this is just a generic rendering, but this would be a stainless steel T shape basically with fasteners here, and this would be the glass portion of the canopy. Similarly, it has you know, an outrigger back to the building to hold the front edge. This would be 8 feet wide by 19 feet long. You can kind of see what I'm describing here. Here's the T shape. Here's the fasteners with the glass on the canopy. Um, so if I go back to, KG&D's original rendering, it's similar to this. It's not, the exact look, but it does give you the glass, um, having the glass on the canopy. Like I said, I haven't been able to drill down to the details with Travis. He's away, and now I'm leaving for a few days starting tomorrow.
Right.
So when I get back next week, I'll have to sit down with him and we can kind of go over this in more depth. You know, from what he showed me, actually what he showed on his quote, it's 19 feet wide by 8 feet. And you're looking at a 10 to 12 week after a notice to proceed for procurement.
And
So,
the big difference, right, is that includes the installation work, right?
yeah, yep,
Where the items that KG&D either were designing custom or were looking at as prefabricated were just for the materials, not for the installation.
correct.
Okay.
And that was also for an aluminum
Right. Understood.
canopy, and this is, stainless steel. So there's a little bit of difference. The look's a little bit different. Like I said, I got to drill down on these details with KG&D. Um, I'm feeling that this is going to be a good option. I think we could finalize the details pretty easily and hopefully move forward with it.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's going to come down to aesthetics. And as I've said, I disqualify myself from all discussions of aesthetics because I don't want to be accountable for how it looks. Um, so others, I say that only sort of half jokingly. We'll have to look at them and, we'll get people's input as to what they think looks best. And um, what's going to be the best thing for the school. So,
Yeah, agree. And like I said, we'll leave that kind of in KG&D's hands. I do try
Mhm.
to I do interject my opinion sometimes on the aesthetics, but I definitely don't want to be the final say.
Right.
I definitely have an opinion though.
Any thoughts or questions from the group on what we're talking
Yeah,
about as it relates to
well,
the new Royal entrance or the kind of the wish list items more generally?
just a quick question on the Royal entrance. You mentioned apples and oranges. I thought I heard Scott say that the prefab come one was only 4 feet versus 8 feet. Did I mishear that, or are we comparing at least they're both similar sizes?
So this this glass one here that I was talking about from Cherry Hill is similar to the original rendition from KG&D, which this is an 8 foot
Right.
by 19 feet. So those two are this similar. The other proposals that we looked at is we talked about possibly to cut some, to bring costs down, doing just a 4 foot metal canopy, painted steel, similar to what is actually on the school now, but as a curved
Yeah,
painted steel canopy. These are only a 4 foot projection.
okay,
The other ones would come all the way, from end to end and be glass and come out 8 feet.
okay. Thank
Um,
you.
Boy, looking at this picture, you could see that the rendering definitely adds a lot to the front entrance of the school.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
guess
it
the
really does.
obvious question um, is the painted metal canopy actually going to make a significant difference versus what's there now, other than just being newer and fresher?
Yeah, it's going to be newer. It's going to be less money, and I don't think it's going to aesthetically add much more than what's there, right?
And then is there a big difference in terms of functionality on 4 foot versus 8 foot, or is it more aesthetic?
Well, yeah, functionality. It's just less cover, right, over the main entrance doors. Um, like I said, it's really just a cheaper option. It's like, okay, we want to do something, but we're trying to save some money, right? I think, if I could drill down on the details with KG&D on the option that I've gotten from Cherry Hill, it puts us back kind of in the price point we thought we were going to be at. Um, and I think it's going to give us a similar look to as what you're seeing here. The one thing I didn't pull up, and I must have grabbed the wrong screenshot, but there is a rendering here that shows Royal Elementary School signage here at the
Right.
top as
Right.
well.
Yeah. I think that's going to be, so it'll end up being a little bit of a combination, right? We'll have, I think we're going to probably end up, and I don't want to put my thumb on the scale, but I think we're going to probably end up is one or the other of the 8 foot projections with the Royal Elementary School signage on the stone facing.
I think just to add in my own 2 cents, it's important to add for those who aren't aware that the existing canopy cannot remain because we're doing a full new stone entrance.
Right.
So there has to be a new one that gets installed if it's wanted.
One way or the other, correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Looking at this side by side, you see, this curved. I'm not sure how that would really look with this new stone facade we're putting on. I just don't know that would really.
Yeah.
I don't think that'd be worth doing all the extra work for and to leave that.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's move on from Royal. Wait till we see the final rendering or the better visual for the Cherry Hill piece, and then
Yeah.
we can talk about both pricing and aesthetics at the same time. Hey, Matt, circling back to your question about what's in Josh's report. So I was looking again at last month's report, and I'm looking at your monthly. And so, for example, your monthly reports show for Royal potential contract changes of 554, where Josh's report last month showed potential contract changes of like 263. So I'm not sure. You're saying your number included the wish list items, so his may not. If I go to, bear with me, I want to go to the next school. That's Royal. You know what? Let me just talk to Josh. I don't want to take everybody's time. This is a lot. It's a lot to look at.
Yeah, he can reach out to me whenever.
Yeah. So the larger item I want to talk about with the whole group, um, about 2 weeks ago, um, about 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by the Board of Finance, and it also came up at an OAC meeting, the OAC meeting 2 weeks ago. There were a couple of items that were included in the proposed school Board of Education capital budget. Those were replacement of the gym floors at two of the schools. I think it was um,
Henley.
Royal and Henley. It was some repaving of the parking areas, I believe, at all three of the schools. And it was installing at Holmes and Henley, or actually at all three of the schools, bollards, basically bollards at the main entrance to prevent vehicles from being able to drive into the main entrance. Those items in the aggregate were at about 300,000, roughly 300,000 per school, and those were in the proposed BOE capital budget. We were approached by BOE and the Board of Finance to consider taking those items on as part of the HHR project, and fast forwarding a little bit, essentially adding those to the wish list, adding those to the use of contingency lists that we've already devised. So going back to a little earlier in this conversation, we had talked about before these items, 350 to 380 plus or minus per school for wish list items. This would make it more in the neighborhood of 650 to 680 per school in wish list items. So in my mind, there were really two key questions. There was one, the obvious one, is there enough room in the aggregate contingencies for each of the schools for the HHR project to be able to take this work on and still leave us with enough breathing room, taking into account where we are in the schedule in March of 2026 with a projected completion date of September of 2026, and the kind of work that still needs to be done. Is there enough room, we think, on an educated guess basis, because that's kind of what this is, risk reward basis, to take this on, one, and two, logistically, could this work be done in such a way that it wouldn't throw too large of a wrench into the construction phasing that we all have come to learn is very complicated and very nuanced. And the combination of the ONGAP team and Kevin Monret's team have done a remarkable job, but it's not easy, right? There's a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of things have to be done on fairly. It's surgery. It's not sledgehammer work. And so those were kind of the two key questions. I think, using the numbers we were talking about earlier in the conversation, right? So, if you consider $1.5 million total contingency for Henley, $1.8 million, $1.9 million total for Holmes, and $1.5 million or $1.6 million total for Royal, there should still be cushion, even if HHR takes on these additional items and rolls them into our wish list. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you have been working with Kevin very carefully, Scott and Kevin, and we did discuss it at OIC a little bit today. You guys are zeroing in on the pricing. I used roughly 300,000 per school simply because those are kind of the ballpark numbers that were in the BOE proposed budget. I know you guys have been, working hard and quickly to try to get more precise numbers on that. I don't know if you have much of an update at this point as to where you think we stand on those numbers.
So I know Kevin did have numbers on these. As far as the gym floors go, I think Kevin's comfortable with his flooring guy. He's used them. He's comfortable with him. My thought on that and speaking with Kevin is really I'm just going to have probably my general trades contractor contract Kevin's guy to do the floors per Kevin's direction. To make that simple. And as
Yeah,
far
because
as the paving,
those were budgeted at about 100,000 per gym.
and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've already gotten a number from him on that.
Right, it's exactly right. So those numbers were budgeted about 100,000, and I did receive the final pricing today, and they're about 88,000 a piece. So there's a slight savings.
Okay, that's good news. That's more good news. Wow.
We're trying our best.
So, in my mind, that is, if we're going to move forward with this, the quicker I can get him contracted to do the work, we can get coordinated with him on what he's going to need to get into the spaces to do the work. We're largely complete inside of our gymnasiums with the work that we had to do as far as getting new ductwork in and stuff like that. So I don't feel that we are going to be hindered at all by him doing the gym floors. So like I said, I'd like to get him on board as quick as possible to coordinate with him. In fact, really, we could probably start coordinating with him, Kevin, anyway. But one way or another, that gym floor work is getting done, correct?
I guess that's what we're here to discuss is
Well, yeah, I
come
mean,
out.
Yeah.
it's
Can I
getting done
jump
and
in,
getting.
Chris?
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Just
Paul.
so let's just back up 50,000. Does anybody have an objection to putting this stuff into our project? I certainly don't. It's going to come out of my pocket one way or the other, whether we tax for it. We've already allocated contingency money. So I just want to know, people can feel totally different about this and say, no, we had a clear scope of a project and we're completing that. My biggest question is to Scott and his team. Does this impact any of these things that we're talking about impact the schedule or opening on time for the schools? That would be my only concern by adding scope and some of the stuff where you're talking bus loop, and I know we can do the floors over the summer, but any of this stuff add a concern for you on schedule and putting this in on your plate?
No. I feel that we can get it all done in time. It's definitely, it's extra work and it does add to our workload, but in the big picture, I feel, we're still going to be okay.
I
We've
mean,
added
I think the one, Paul, that's probably on the tightest window that I learned at OAC today was probably the paving, because that's
Right.
the kind of work that you need to like find essentially like a window. The paving contractors need to get a window to be able to do that, and get it on their schedule because their schedules are booking up. So that's the
plants
one
are
that is
opening now. It's going to be April, so they shut down and they don't start opening until it's over 40 degrees. So
right.
if we want to jump on someone's schedule because everyone's already got their stuff allocated for summer paving, so.
And and that's the biggest, and on each of the two schools or each of the three schools, that's the single biggest cost item is the paving. And that's also one that's, well, gym floors will be disruptive, but paving will be really disruptive.
It will, but I mean, it's something, we haven't done and worked around before. It's very common on projects. So it's just something we have to work into the schedule. My thought is, probably get it milled first and then we work in a schedule when the best time is going to be to lay the new asphalt, is to not disrupt, what we're doing, which it really shouldn't. Those areas that the paving is in, it's, aside from homes, is probably the one that's going to be the most disruptive because it's two different lots and it's, more in the way, I would say, than the other two schools. But
yeah,
I really don't think that it's going to be a big issue. It's just a matter of scheduling. We are working on pricing with my site contractors. I haven't gotten it yet. I'm planning on getting it by the end of the week. And then really what the thought is there is to compare notes with what Kevin's pricing is to what we have. And, we're going to go with the cheapest price, apples to apples. What's the cheapest way we can achieve our goal of getting these lots paved?
Yeah, and I think
Kevin?
we may need to do a communication with the committee once we have more clarity on the pricing on the paving so people really know what the order of magnitude is. I mean, look, Paul, to answer your question about paying for it, I mean, you know, we've been saying from the very, very beginning that there's really no room to go back and ask for more money, right? And so
Yeah.
taking on the wish list we've already decided to take on, right, is in its own right a calculated risk, right? And we felt pretty comfortable because we had a pretty big cushion, right? And then these additional items were, it was requested that we consider taking those on. And, it is not quite, but, close to a doubling of the wish list. And suddenly the calculated risk looks a little bit more risky. I think we still have room.
Well, let me ask you this way, Chris. Kevin, does this take scope off your plate on the summer when you have to rejiggle three schools together and make your life easier by having Scott's team manage this so you don't have to oversee it with your staff and we take the money from a place we already have it?
Yes, Paul, it does and it doesn't. I mean, obviously, it adds another layer of complexity to Scott's plate, but we've been working as a team
I'm not
all
worried
along.
about Scott, Kevin. I'm worried about you. I've already ruined Scott's last 3 years, so I could he's right now he's already thinking in August he's going to be sitting on a beach somewhere and he's going to forget about this thing ever happened to him. But now I'm just going to make his summer even worse till he gets to the finish line, which I'm totally fine with. Because
I'm
I
fine with
already
it too.
gave him
The
a
answer is
big
yes.
bag of money to do these three schools, or not him
Yeah, I mean the
personally,
biggest difference. Look, the biggest difference, if I understand it right, and I don't have any visibility into Board of Finance sausage making. Rob Cardone is the expert there, but the biggest impact is if we take this on as part of our project, as you noted, Paul. These are dollars that are already allocated, right, by way of the contingency. So what it means is that assuming that the numbers are all accurate and nothing crawls out of the woodwork, it means we give less contingency back to the town at the end of the project, as versus these items being in the Board of Education capital budget, in which case those have to be, in effect, bonded and added to the town tax base, if you will.
right? But these are critical. The bollards and stuff for the safety is a critical item. It needs to be done, and so I'm all for rolling that into our. Listen, whether the money goes. We've already allocated this money. This is stuff that has to happen for the schools. Kevin, you're going to argue that we need this no matter what, right? And I would argue it with you. So my point is, we have the contingency money. We can, if it doesn't impact the schedules or getting the students back in when they need to get in, or Kevin's, or can he can take this off play, then I'm 100% for it. I certainly will listen if others are against it. That's just my 2 cents. So
and look, if we
can do it, let's do it.
Yeah, just to pile on, I don't have any principled objection to doing it, right? I think it's just, it's a little bit of a departure from the ed specs, but the wish list as currently devised is already a departure from the ed specs, improving on the project from what the ed specs had contemplated. But not to use John Zagrodsky's words against him, but he wanted us to make this a really nice project, and if we have the room to do it, that's why we're considering things like the Royal entrance and improving some of the bathrooms and et cetera, et cetera. So our professional team has done just a great job in keeping the pricing on everything we've been doing in line, and so I have no principal objection to expanding the ed specs to doing this. I think, Kevin, like you said, will say this all needed to be done anyway, and it's a matter of which pot of money it's coming out of, so long as it can be done in a way that doesn't completely disrupt the schedule.
Well, also, can I make a point? What year was that ed spec written? I feel like I've been on this committee for at least 5 years, Chris. You can tell me differently.
2022.
Okay, so it feels longer. It's got to be. We were in COVID. So anyway, my point is, things change, projects change, the ed specs, were thought of then, and now we have different needs. And so that would be my argument against people who said, we just should follow the ed specs, and that was the only thing. And I think the money was allocated. As long as there's a way that the finance committee and this committee can move, put that scope into the project, and no one objects, I am 100% all for it. I'm curious, if others have objections, please speak. And like I said, I'm just giving
I
my
mean,
two
look,
cents.
in rough round numbers, even if we take these items on, we should still finish the project, knock on wood, with close to or a little over on a per school basis, $1 million in aggregate owners and CM's unspent contingency.
I'll just chime in. I'm in 100% agreement with Paul, and my only caveat I would say is that Scott mentioned apples to apples on pricing and specs for the paving. I would just throw in timing matters, and I'd be willing to pay a little bit extra to make sure the timing works, to make sure that it runs as smoothly as possible. And to Paul's point, kids are in school in September.
None of the site contractors are on this call, right? So they didn't hear that. Okay, good.
No, I would never say that to them. In fact, I would try to go the other way and get them to come down on the pricing so they could do the work.
Right.
I'd rather not have two paving contractors on my site.
Yeah,
Right.
Not to speak for the Board of Finance, I retired from that a while back. But the purpose of this is, look, the Board of Education and Administration has got this work that the Board of Finance has proposed to be financed through this contingency. That's teed up for the next fiscal year anyway. And so they were going to have to include that in the budget. And this gives them a way to use these funds that are already appropriated and will be paid for with bonding to cover this work. So there's got to be work that we need to do anyway. This is just a way to get it done through this process. And it speaks to a broader kind of question that we need to have a more fulsome debate about in terms of the balance between operating expenditures, bonding, fund balance, withdrawals, all that sort of thing. But we don't need to litigate that in this process. I've had a chance to talk with Jim today and Jack Davis and 4 or 5 other people, and I think it's the right thing to do from a financial perspective. But I just want to emphasize the earlier conversation, which is, look, if this is going to slow things down, interrupt the school start next year, or anything kind of on Eric's list in terms of smooth sailing, and Dennis brings up the right point, we don't want that to disrupt the administration's work to educate students. And so as long as it can be done consistent with that, then certainly it's got my support. I don't know, Eric, if you wanted to weigh in, if that's, hopefully I've echoed your sentiments, right?
No, that exactly. And having been in on the conversations thus far, I'm confident with the opinion of the professionals that this won't be problematic.
Okay.
It's definitely, like I said, it's added workload to us. I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy, but I don't see us not being able to get it done. I just, like I said, but I'm confident that my teams can work these schedules to fit everything in and get it done in time.
Much appreciated.
Any further thoughts on those items? Hopefully that was a accurate description of how this ended up on our desk. Saving some of the conversation back and forth, but essentially it became a question of logistics and cost and where the money was. But I think when we boiled it all down, I think we have enough money to do it, and we've got the team on the ground that says they can do it without overly disrupting the project. So, and then they'll work their way through the regular change order process like the other wish list items and be approved through that process. Paul?
Sorry, I have 3 kids fighting each other in the kitchen. My wife's in Toronto on a business trip, so I'm trying to cook
No worries.
dinner and
If you wouldn't mind
just-
muting that. Yeah, go ahead and mute then if
I'm
you don't
sorry,
mind.
this is happening.
That's okay. It's okay. And like I said, what I'll do is that I'll talk to Josh tomorrow. I'll get the most recent financial summary and we'll send that around. And then if people have questions, we can discuss. I'm sorry we didn't have that for this evening's meeting in front of us. Leaving us with really one last piece of business to take care of, and that's to actually take action on the 3 schools' pay applications so the subcontractors stay happy. If I could get a motion to approve pay application number 22 for the Holmes Elementary School dated February 28th, 2026 in the amount of $478,548.31. Sarah moves. Rob seconds. All in favor? Great, that passes. If I could get a motion to approve pay application number 22 for the Hindley Elementary School dated February 28th, 2026 in the amount of $406,216.02. Sarah moves. Dennis seconds. All in favor? Ross, you don't get to vote, but thank you for your vote anyway. If I could get a motion to approve pay application number 22 for the Royal Elementary School, dated February 28th, 2026 in the amount of $478,759.40. Sarah moves. Tom seconds. All in favor? That passes as well. Great.
Tom, hey, wait a minute. Tom, was there any underage voting in there? I wanted to check to make sure.
I didn't see his hand. I didn't see his hand go up there. I saw Tom's hand go up.
I saw an awfully small hand over there.
He is going to be going to Royal in a couple of years, so he votes for the 8-foot.
Okay, he's qualified. We're going to qualify that.
He wants the grander awning.
Chris, just to interrupt. Paige, you have your hand raised. I just want to make sure that that's to vote affirmatively, but if you had a question, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask it.
That was to vote. Thank you.
Just making sure. Thanks.
No, thank you. Natasha, I know we didn't get what did you think of the pictures of the Royal renderings?
I think both of them are an improvement from what is currently there. And someone else asked my question about functionality. That was really my only question. So I think either would be an improvement to what's currently there. And I think it's nice that with the improvement, that will be the first impression that you see and a nice completion to the project.
Cool.
So thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wanted to make sure that you had a chance to give some input on that, and you'll see the renderings as they evolve. That is all I have for this evening. I'm sorry we stayed longer, but I think we needed to have a fulsome discussion on these on some of these additional items. And I'm glad we were able to do that, and we had such good participation. Anything else from the group before we adjourn?
You're going to need a volunteer to eat your donuts at the OAC meetings.
I know I'm getting a bad reputation, I'm sure about that, but I sort of look forward to those. Anyway, with that, could I get a motion to adjourn? Sarah moves, Rob seconds, all in favor. Great. All right, everybody. Thank you again so much. And professional team, thank you guys as always.
Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.